Hey, I'm Henken, and in this show we bring you the most inspiring stories from female entrepreneurs, investors, and innovators in our ecosystem, the Guild community.
And today we have Lindsey Williams with us and Megan Henken, and I'm super excited to have you on the show because we know each other for a while because you were part of the Guild Academy a few cohorts ago. So welcome to the show, Megan and Lindsey.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
And it's awesome to have a co-founder team here because usually I just talk with one person, but today it's both of you. So I'm very excited to also dive into those kinds of topics here later on. But first of all, I want to introduce you to our audience. And I will not do that. I will let you do that. And I also want to learn more about what sparked the idea for this awesome company that you created, MyUTI. So Megan and Lindsey, take it away. Who are you and what sparked the idea for MyUTI?
Honestly, COVID made it possible. It's a great story. Megan and I have been working in the female urology and diagnostic space for a long time. And we're able to capitalize on this opportunity that COVID presented. Before COVID, most people didn't know what PCR technology was. And while we knew that there were major gaps in both education and innovation for women with urologic health, but more specifically, urinary tract infections, the idea of at-home testing with molecular diagnostics, which sounds like a really big word, wasn't commonplace. I kind of reference it as like the Uber of medicine. If before Uber, someone had come to you and said, a total stranger is going to pick you up in a car and you're going to ride with them to go where you need to go, you would have said that was hitchhiking, right? And now that is our consumer expectation. Now, the idea of getting in a taxi where I can't track my progress on my phone, I don't see who my driver is on my phone, I can't send my location to someone, that sounds scary, right? Compared to what we're used to with Uber. So COVID kind of opened this door of opportunity for us with telehealth and this digital healthcare revolution, and a lot of it around testing and at-home sample collection for testing, for types of testing that consumers weren't previously familiar with.
Once you have a UTI, you can get that tested at home. So you don't have to go to the doctor. You don't have to have these weird conversations and put in your schedule, but you create a solution that I can do that at home and then still get the right treatment.
Really what we're trying to do is change and evolve the way that healthcare delivery systems happen today. And COVID opened those doors. Now we're used to driving to CVS and swabbing ourselves for a COVID test. We're used to going to the grocery store and buying a test and testing ourselves at home. And that's really what we're looking to shift as well. Why do you need to go to urgent care or wait days to go see a doctor just to pee in a cup to get a test for a UTI? We want to change that. We want you to be able to order a test online, collect your sample at home, and then send it to our lab and get results in 24 hours. So we're really looking to shift what our expectations are for UTI management.
If you're a woman, you probably have had this issue before where you wake up and you're like, oh, something isn't right. So again, very cool idea. And I love the way how you break open these paradigms of how healthcare is administered, and it's changing, right? So at some point you must have woken up too and be like, okay, this is my new thing. I'm going to start a startup and I'm going to solve this. Tell us about this journey and what has happened since that day when you woke up and said, there needs to be a better solution.
So really over the last year, and since we last participated in the Guild Accelerator, we have had an insane number of milestones over the last 12 months. So we've done everything from branding, building a website, contracting with a lab, contracting with clinicians, navigating our tech stack and no-code solutions, all of that to get our MVP to the market. And a lot of that is attributed to the guild and the resources that we learned when we were there and working with you, becoming really focused on what our MVP is. And we were able to do that through the business canvas. That was a new tool that was introduced to us. And as an entrepreneur, as we're trying to work through this, there's so many good ideas and a lot of noise that gets introduced. But that business canvas, which is still taped up to my wall right next to me, is what I constantly look at when any idea comes forward. And we really have to sit back and say, is this going to deter us from what we need to do to get the MVP to market? And so that's really what we've been committed to. And because of that focus, I think that has really helped us also get past that first funding hurdle as well.
That's amazing. So many milestones, and now you are just before launch. Congrats, huge congrats. So when you look back, and thank you for giving kudos to the Guild and our 8-week program, where we take entrepreneurs like you through the steps of launching a business and introducing you to the tools that are super helpful in continuing to build and grow a company. What are the resources have you utilized since then that you would say other entrepreneurs need to learn about?
Canva, and how to be really good at Googling things and learning on your own. But all kidding aside, I think that really taking on the information and advice that you get from other female founders, utilizing the tools that the Guild gave us as well. And, I already addressed the business canvas, but we did go through that female founder checklist that you provided, and all those organizations that do invest in female founders and in tech founders. We went through and vetted every single name that was on there and applied where it was appropriate for us. So we really did take that information seriously.
I have been so amazed at just the networks that we have become a part of. And these are groups of women where when you get into the Slack channels, you get into these WhatsApp chat groups, people are sharing, just no quid pro quo. People are sharing. It is truly a mentality of, the rising tide floats all boats, and not sharing insignificant things, right? Sharing PR contacts or, templates for contracts, or just inside, point of contact and information, everything. I mean, you can go into these groups and just pose a question and say, hey, has anybody used Stripe versus Shopify? And what are the pros and cons? And you'll get flooded with responses of people just trying to help, because we're all in the trenches together. And there's really that sense of community. And that has been immensely helpful, both from a practical standpoint, right, to get that, access to information, but also from an emotional standpoint, because the entrepreneurial journey is not for the faint of heart.
Yes, to that. And of course, that's why we started the Guild, to build community and to put women in contact with each other and to share those ups and downs and to help each other out of those downs and reach down a helping hand. So I'm very happy to hear that. Do you have any specific communities that you would recommend to other female entrepreneurs? And I know you're in the femtech space, right? So that might be a specific vertical, but perhaps there's other people who are listening who are in that femtech space and would love to know which resources you've used.
Yeah, I honestly, anything that's available, I think everybody has to kind of find that niche of what works for them, both in personality fit and resource fit. So there's so many different, Entreprenista League, the Guild, Femtech Founders. There's so many of them. We've really tried to focus on the ones that are either more organic or have a really specific purpose. So like the Guild, where it's a membership, but you know what you're paying for and what you're getting out of that community. And it's really tangible in terms of its value. Because, the one thing that Megan and I have said and learned is that there's a lot of ways to spend money as an entrepreneur. And you really want to make sure that you're doing it wisely. So, we're not we're not, we are very sensitive to the fact that, not everybody is made of money, and that we're all watching our pennies trying to get these companies off the ground. And sometimes it does come down to, do I join that extra club, or do I put that money into marketing?
Very well said. And that's also why we created templates and partnerships with organizations like, let's say, Carta or VFunder or multiple organizations, so that we can negotiate a better deal for you for those software tools and potentially marketing campaigns. But then also you collaborate with a lot of other communities, like the Fourth Floor, for instance, that really helps you find a great advisory board and those kinds of communities. So I love those insights. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, there's two of you here today, Lindsey and Megan, and that's one of the first questions I hear sometimes from entrepreneurs. How do I find that co-founder? And it's kind of like a marriage in a way, right? You spend a lot of time. Yeah, you're both nodding. And so tell us and our listeners about your journey of finding each other and how you would recommend others to find their co-founder. And then also, I'm sure there has been ups and downs in that relationship, like any relationship. And how did you navigate that?
We are a true COVID founder story, to be honest with you. Lindsey and I had both played in this urology space for a while within our careers. And so in 2019, we were actually introduced by a mutual friend who said, Megan, you're talking all about female pelvic health and urology. You have got to meet this woman, Lindsey, who is on the men's health side and doing a bunch of urology here. I just think you two would really click. So we had a conversation on the phone and both got on our little soapbox about women's health and pelvic health and UTIs. And that's what kicked it all off.
It's so COVID 2020, we'll call it a 2020 founder story, because those conversations really sparked that relationship building process. And we started talking about, what we could do about these problems, these gaps, the lack of innovation, right, that we were seeing. And so it was at the very beginning of 2020 when we said, oh, let's do this project together. And at that point had not actually met in person yet. This had all been done over the phone. So Megan lives in Colorado, I live in Georgia, and everything had been just these, kind of casual, impassioned conversations over the phone that led to, we can do this project together. And then COVID hit. And what started out as like a side project that we thought would really, help to educate, all of a sudden turned into a company. So MyUTI was like legally officially founded April of 2020. We had never met in person, and we did not meet in person until April of 2021. So we did all of this building with each other virtually.
Wow. And so when you actually met then in 2021, how was that?
It was surreal. And again, we used one of your guild tools, not to keep you, but truly, like, we sat down that first day, had a cup of coffee and breakfast, and went through the co-founder checklist and just had a real honest and frank conversation about how we felt when certain situational things would arise. And it was nice because we were face to face. It's you lose that over Zoom. We talk on the daily. I think both of our spouses thought it was a little bit odd that we were entering into this other marriage and we had never met in person. But for us, it just made sense. Our personalities work really well. I think we both show each other a lot of grace. We're both, business owners, mothers, spouses, sisters, daughters, right? There's a lot of responsibilities. There was a lot of pressure going on during COVID for all of us. And then on top of that, being a female founder and entering into this new space, But that co-founder checklist really did give us the ability to navigate some of these situations that are going to be tricky. So yeah, it was great. And I think since then we've seen each other face to face a total of 4 more times. So it's not as if we see each other a lot.
I call it the prenup. The co-founder checklist was our prenup, because that was really when we'd been through the guild, program, and it was through that we really kind of honed that MVP, honed the business canvas, and sat down and said, oh, we're really going to do this now, right? Like before it had been like, oh, we can do this. This is great. There was a lot of dreaming. There was a lot of planning and strategizing, but like really that was the moment that it came down to brass tacks of saying like this, we are committing, we are putting this on paper. We're going to, right, with clear minds and hearts, come together and talk about how we want things to happen, before emotion gets involved. And that was really helpful for us. I would say for someone looking for a co-founder, one aspect of our relationship that's been really helpful is, Megan and I are not afraid to shy away from the hard conversations. But Megan does it with such grace and I think professionalism that it's easy to have those hard conversations with her. There's a level of openness and vulnerability. And I think also just operationally a complementary skill set where it's almost like a Venn diagram. We have enough overlap that we can work well together, but enough differentiation that we're not repeating each other's work all the time.
And that's something we highlight as well, to say, if you're looking for somebody that looks like you, that may not work out, especially in a startup where you have to wear so many hats and you have to divide those hats and get other people to wear them. You decided to give this your all. And I know when you were in the Guild Academy, there was the question, when is it time to jump? Now, I guess fundraising might have something to do with that, or maybe the fundraising came after that decision. So that's always something the founders are interested in. When do you give it your all? And then when does the funding come? Do you get the funding before you do that? Or do you give it your all and then the funding comes because you've done that? So what did that look like for you, and where are you now with your fundraising journey?
So I think it's an evolution, and I don't know that there's one right way for that to be done. We heard the founder of Poppy Seed Health, Simone, speak to this. And one thing that she said that really stuck with us was you have to do you. And we're already, as female founders, told so many things for us to fit into a box that doesn't already work. Right? Just being moms, being wives, being all these things, knowing that we're going to get less than 2% of venture capital, knowing that we have all these obstacles to overcome before we can even break even with our male counterparts. Right? So for us, and this is where a lot of that grace that we talked about as co-founders has come in. It's been a lot of juggling. And there have been times where I've had more availability to focus on the business and have taken some of the burden. And there's times where Megan has had more availability to take on the burden. And so we've kind of tried to take the approach of, it's not 1 + 1 = 2, right? It's 1 + 1 equals the I don't even know what the right word is, but it's exponential in terms of us together versus as individuals. So trying not to look at it so in such a binary way. I think depending on your personal situation, maybe you can take the leap before you can get the funding. I'll just say about fundraising, prepare to be humbled. Not only in how hard it is, because everyone will tell you how hard it is, but also in a really beautiful way of, for us, the very first people to give us checks were people that knew us personally and professionally and said, I believe in you. Like, yes, it's a good idea, but I believe in you. And that is a really wonderful, terrifying thing to experience. Because you respect these people, you respect your relationship, and right? Like money can complicate things. So, it's very challenging. I think fundraising takes 5 times as long as you think it will or you think it should. And I also think money comes from places you wouldn't expect and doesn't come from places that you would have expected. So there's really no right path for this. But what Simone said rang true, which is we have to be true to us, which means being true to where we are in our lives, in our finances, in our goals, our aspirations. And the reality is, if we can't do it, being true to ourselves, maybe that's just not worth doing.
For us, when we were looking at our MVP and what can we achieve with the funds that we've raised to date, that is really what made the decision for us. Can we do what we've set out to do with the money that we have accessible right now? And so for us, that meant that there was going to have to be a balance between our day-to-day businesses and then getting MyUTI off the ground. Because part of it, what we've heard is just demonstrating that you can make your idea a reality. And Lindsey and I know if there's one thing is that you tell us, good idea, let's see you actually do it. Okay, fine. Go ahead and underestimate us. We will get it done. And so that's exactly what we've done. So for us, it's worked to get our MVP to this point. And sure, maybe it took us a little bit longer, but I have to say what we've built, because we've taken the time, actually is a scalable solution beyond what we originally set out to do. And we've saved a significant amount of money because so many people believe in us and how far we've taken it with the little amount of funds that we've had to date.
Okay, good. So if any investors are listening, Megan and Lindsey are raising, and it's a great solution. So in 2 years from now, how is MyUTI going to look like?
More products in the portfolio, whether that's tests or other urology-based solutions for women. We're also probably going to be expanding into some interesting areas around education. So I think for us, we have been just trying to absorb and soak in all of the white space and the gaps that we see. And wouldn't hurt to see ourselves in retail pharmacy either. So that is also in the playbook for the next 2 years, that you'd be able to walk up to Walgreens, Walmart, CVS, and pick up your MyUTI kit right off the shelf.
So if you have a company in a similar space, or you have gone down the route and you have been able to put awesome product into CVS or any pharmacy, then perhaps reach out and have a conversation and help each other and pull each other up. So how can the community help you to get MyUTI off to a great launch?
Really speak up and expect more. There's so much misinformation out there around women's health, especially around public health. It is not normal to have multiple UTI infections within 6 months or a year. There's a lot of misinformation about what causes a UTI. I think a lot of people are starting to learn about medical gaslighting and being minimized about when you do have a urinary tract infection. And in fact, it's the number 2 infection in the United States. So it's not insignificant. And I think people need to start speaking up about their concerns about the number of antibiotics that they're exposed to. And is it appropriate to be given an antibiotic without any testing to begin with? So that's what I would really say the call to action is right now, is kind of speak up, make sure that you understand why you're taking some of these pretty strong antibiotics and how it really can impact you positively or negatively.
I'll jump in and say, Funding. The answer is always also funding. So we are continuing to raise and looking for angel investors who are interested in supporting women-led, women-focused companies in this space and changing the dynamic of how women experience healthcare in this country. And then lastly, I would say, strategic partnerships. To your point, Anne, there are so many companies out there that are focused on women's health where there's a lot of synergy and opportunity. So we always welcome opportunities to chat with like-minded leaders in the space and see what opportunities for partnership there are.
Amazing. All right, so you heard it. Speak up, advocate for yourselves, and then also invest and connect Megan and Lindsey to angel investors and strategic partners. And if you know anything about this space or have some insights, reach out. We will keep you posted on the Guild about the launch of MyUTI, so you know how you can support Megan and Lindsey on their journey. And I just want to really thank you for coming onto the show and sharing all these milestones and all these learnings, and also your personal relationship as co-founders here with the Guild community. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's full circle for us because it really all came together in the beginning with the Guild. So thank you.
If you're inspired, then subscribe to our channels on YouTube, on our social media channels at Get Guilded, and also on our platform, letsguild.com. You can also sign up to our newsletter to get news about the latest and greatest in inspiring stories from female founders, entrepreneurs, investors, and innovators in the Guild. I'll see you next time.